What's next?
Next is Duran V. Hey, John, I was wondering if you saw the video that Zachary Levi put out today about all the fake outrage stuff people and YouTube channels have been putting out about Brie Larson and Captain America. He shoots them down pretty harsh. Do you think that a guy from a competing company who stands to gain from people bad mouthing Captain Marvel actually standing up and defending it from all the crap will actually do anything to set people straight?
Well, and I'm going to assume he means Captain Marvel, not Captain America. And yeah, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. The whole stuff with the Brie Larson thing, and this has been a topic that people have brought up nearly every day. And I've had a bunch of people writing me a bunch of stuff, and I thought maybe today would be a good time to just kind of address this, and mostly because Zachary Levi put out a video, and we'll take a look at what he was saying here in a second. A lot of people have been emailing me and asking, John, I don't even understand. What's this whole thing with Brie Larson about? What's the big outrage? Okay, now, regardless of what side you're on here, just do me this courtesy. Hear me out. All right? Just do me the courtesy of hear me out. And then if you want to throw a temper tantrum and hate me for saying what I'm going to say, by all means indulge. But at least hear me out for what I'm about to lay out. And then make up your own minds. This all started, pretty much, when Brie Larson, for those of you who don't know about this goes all the way back to A Wrinkle in Time, which was, in my opinion, a fairly bad movie. I wanted to love it, but it's just not that good. It's kind of a bad film. You may love it, and if you do, that's great. I thought it was kind of a poor film. At any rate, the movie very much is targeted at young black women, particularly because that's one of the main protagonists of the film is a young black girl who does, I forget the actress's name. She does a very good job in the film. At any rate, Brie Larson was then spontaneously, being interviewed and being talked to. And she was making a point about making an observation that she had seen for a long time and that I've noticed for a long time, that primarily the press that is invited to cover these films at press junkets and events and screenings are primarily, for the vast majority of them, white men. And Brie Larson was making a point that, hey, if we're making movies that appeal to all different types of people, shouldn't some people who represent those demographics also be here and be invited to be a part of the press of this? And she said these words. She said, in the midst of trying to express that we need more inclusion in this thing, she says, because I don't care what a 40-year-old white guy says about Wrinkle in Time. I want to know what, somebody from the demographic that this movie is supposed to be presenting to has to say about it. And that's what she said. And that sparked a major outrage. Now, in the defense of people who initially got outraged of that, it was a poor choice of words. When you sit back and look at the entire conversation and you look at the entire context, I think if you are a little rational, you see exactly what it was she meant. But again, in defense of those people who initially got pretty angry at her statement, that one small set of words she used were probably the wrong set of words to use. They could be taken out of they're easily taken out of context. Because all you have to do is say, Brie Larson said, I don't care what 40-year-old white men say about this movie. 13 words that will go down in infamy, right? If all you read is that, you can understand that creates a certain narrative. And in defense of everybody who initially got their back up over that statement, I get it. However, I think if you read the whole context and understand what the point she was making was, you understand that her whole context was not white male journalists bad. No, the purpose of her whole context was we need to include more people into this conversation. That's what she was getting at. That's what she was saying. Okay. Where this whole thing then exploded was a fundamental lie that people then started to make up. And I have had so many people emailing me saying, John, did you see that Brie Larson says she hates white men? And I'm like, she never said she hated white men. John, did you see that Brie Larson said she refuses to be interviewed by These are real emails that I've gotten, guys, that have been taken from real fake headlines. Do you see Brie Larson refuses to be interviewed by white journalists? Brie Larson does not refuse to be interviewed by white journalists. John, did you see that Brie Larson said this and all this kind of stuff? Here's some of our David Letterman top 10 things Brie Larson has not said. Let's just be clear. A lot of people writing me saying, John, did you see that Brie Larson said she hated white men? Let's be clear. Fact check. Brie Larson has never said she hated white men. John, do you see that Brie Larson said, I don't want white men to see my movie? That's a popular one. That's one that goes around all the time. But John, didn't Brie Larson say she doesn't want white men to see her movie? Because that's what they hear other people saying. Fact check. Brie Larson never said she didn't want white men to see her movie. John, did you hear Brie Larson said, I don't want to do interviews with white men? That's another one going around. There's this myth going around that Brie Larson saying she refuses to be interviewed by white men. Fact check. Brie Larson has never said that. John, didn't you see here that Brie Larson said, I don't want white press at my press junkets? That's another popular one going around. Fact check. Brie Larson has never said she didn't want white journalists at her press junket. Let's just be let's just be clear about that. These very popular things that are being thrown around all over the place, Brie Larson has never said any of these. She's never said any of them. They were made up by people who took that initial, I'm guessing, 13-word statement that she said in the context of a multi-paragraph statement and twisted it and put their own meanings on it and said, she said these words, therefore Brie Larson hates white men. That's where it came from. But okay. Let's say for a moment, now hear me out. Let's say for a moment you are one of those people that you were still a little unclear about what Brie Larson meant when she made that full statement. What did she mean by that? Maybe you are still a little bit cloudy on it. Maybe you don't see the obvious message of it, which is we just need to include more people in here. And maybe you're still a little bit confused by it. Okay. So what Brie Larson did is then she came out to clarify exactly what she meant, so we didn't have to guess. So we wouldn't have to sit here and guess and interpret and make up our own meanings. Brie Larson came out and put out several statements to clarify hey, if you're confused by what I said, here's exactly what I meant. Now, let me read this at length. This is from The Playlist, one of the more major trades in the industry today. This is from an article in The Playlist, and it ends with Brie Larson's statement. Here's what was written in The Playlist. The saying, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression, applies a lot these days, but it feels especially and unfortunately relevant in the conversations around Captain Marvel. Brie Larson has made reasonable and refreshing calls for inclusivity in the press access around the Marvel Cinematic Universe film, which some dudes have taken wrongly to mean no white men allowed in the clubhouse, a clubhouse that they have guarded for, pretty much the entire history of film journalism. In an interview with the Washington, D.C. Fox station, Brie Larson clarifies what she meant for anybody who is still confused about her statements. And this is what then Brie Larson came out to clarify for anybody who is still confused about what she said. What I'm looking for is to bring more seats to the table, the Oscar-winning actress said when asked by the interviewer about the angry response. No one is getting their chair taken away. There is no less seats at the table. There's just more seats at the table. She went on to say things like, I'm not trying to uninvite anybody from the party. I'm just saying we need to invite more people to the party. We need to invite people to the party who represent all these different groups of people who watch our movies. They should be represented a little bit by the people who cover the movies for them. That's all she was saying. Now, what a reasonable person will then do is go, okay, so you're not saying you hate white men. No, I'm not saying I hate white men. And you're not saying you don't want white press at your junkets. Heavens no, I'm not saying I don't want white press at my junket. Cool. Thank you for clarifying that. That is what a reasonable person then does. A statement was made where, hey, this is on Brie Larson. She used in the spontaneous moment of doing a quick interview, she used a poor choice of words. She did. That for some people caused a little confusion. She then came out and gave several statements like the one we just read, clarifying that to clear up any confusion. What a reasonable person then does is go, so that all that junk stuff, that's not what you're saying. No, that's not what I'm saying. Cool. Thank you for clarifying that because it was a little questionable. That's what a reasonable person then says. However, and this is where we get into the Zachary Levi stuff. However, the problem is there are a number of YouTube channels, websites, whatever, that they don't want what's reasonable. Because reasonable doesn't get clicks. There are a number of entities out there that want to perpetuate the lie. The lie that says Brie Larson hates white men. Brie Larson doesn't want white men to see her movie. Brie Larson doesn't want to do interviews with white men. Brie Larson doesn't want white press at her junkets. Because hate gets clicks. And so you get a number of channels out there who maybe you could understand initially the confusion about it. But even after Brie Larson has clarified everything, there are still outlets out there that want to engage in and perpetuate the lie. The lie that Brie Larson said this, she never said that. The lie that Brie Larson said this, she never said that. The lie that Brie Larson said this, she never said that. It is in their best interest to perpetuate the lie. And they perpetuate it so much that I get people emailing me saying, John, did you hear that Brie Larson hates white people? She said she hates white people. Actually, check where you're getting that information from. Brie Larson never said she hated white people. Double check that. There has been this organized smear campaign to deliberately lie and misrepresent and twist what Brie Larson said and what she meant and hide all the clarification it does to perpetuate the outrage. And I call it fake outrage. Now, I don't call it fake outrage because people aren't actually outraged. I call it fake outrage because to me, any outrage that is based and predicated on a lie is fake outrage. And a lot of the outrage people feel, because here's the thing, dudes, listen, I am a white male film journalist. If Brie Larson was straight up saying, I hate white men, I don't want white journalists to see my movie, I don't want to do interviews with white journalists, I don't want white journalists at my press, and I'd be, Brie Larson, screw you. I'd be totally there. I could totally get the outrage. She specifically is talking about me, the white male journalist. I would totally be on board with that because this would be unacceptable. But it's not what she said. And therefore, we continue to have this lie, this misrepresentation, this defamatory stuff, this malignment being encouraged and propagated and pushed continuously, even though it's not true. If Brie Larson said all those things, we'd all be completely justified to be outraged at her. Absolutely. But the fact is, and facts matter, folks, the fact is she never said any of that stuff. And it all comes from 13 words she used in a 3-paragraph statement trying to make one point that people have taken and twisted to represent something completely different. Now, let's get to Zachary Levi on this. Zachary Levi, who right now is working for Warner Brothers. He's working for the competition. Zachary Levi, who is starring in Shazam. Zachary Levi may be the one guy in this world who stands to benefit the most from this lying smear campaign towards Brie Larson. Zachary Levi, who can profit from this lying smear campaign. He decided that the right thing to do was to get online and address this head on. Now, you can find his thing online. It's actually from a longer conversation on there. I've got about a minute of it here, but here are the comments of Zachary Levi, the star of Shazam, talking about this whole stuff and people lying about Brie. This is what he had to say. The guy who stands to profit from the lie, he's saying this instead. Check this out.
There are people out there making a lot of like really inflammatory, defamatory, and completely fictitious, like reviews and posts of Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, and some like trying to pit Shazam against it, and saying they're going to support us and not them because of things that they are, by the way, making up. For anyone out there who thinks you're doing me a favor, or you're doing Shazam a favor, or you're doing Warner Brothers, or what, you're not. This is not helping anyone or anything. anyone out there who's holding on to some bone, like they need to pick a side and pick a fight, is sorely mistaken. And I really hope that you'll just chill on that. Don't go and engage in that type of behavior anymore. If you want to be passionate about either movie, rock and roll. If you want to be passionate about both movies, rock and roll. But going, this is really low blow type of stuff. To be going and lying, first of all, is just, the bottom of the barrel to me. But to be lying in an attempt to discredit or defame somebody, I think is just really sad. So please don't do that.
So there you have the guy who stands to benefit the most from the misleading statements, the propagation of erroneous information, all this kind. The guy who stands to benefit from it the most, he's coming out and speaking against it. And I got to tell you, my respect level for Zach Levi is absolutely through the roof. Like, I mean, this was really, he didn't have to say anything. He could have just stood by, stayed quiet. But I love the fact that he said, no, this isn't right. Because if they do this to her, then they can do it to me. And by the way, as predictable as water being wet, there are already some now places turning on Zachary Levi. How dare Zachary Levi say that? And they're starting to turn on Zach Levi now. But, so I thought that was really ballsy. Now look, lest anybody, and I know there's going to be many people that deliberately try to take and misrepresent what it is I'm saying. Let me be clear on this. For anybody out there who's just not looking forward to Captain Marvel, nothing wrong with that. I mean, look, I'll be the first guy to tell. I'm looking forward to Captain Marvel because I trust Kevin Feige, but I'll be the first one to tell you. You see me talk about the trailers. I have been underwhelmed by the Captain Marvel trailers. Quite frankly, I think a couple of them have been pretty good, but overall, pretty underwhelmed by the Captain Marvel trailers. And if you were somebody to say to me, hey, John, I'm not interested in this film because I don't think the trailers looked any good, I'd be like, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I can't disagree. I think that a couple of them have been pretty good, but overall, compared to Marvel's standards of marketing, I think it's been pretty poor. I don't blame you at all. Anybody who just want to see because of that, nothing wrong with that. Because I don't think the trailer's been all that good either. And if I didn't already have my pre-existing trust in Kevin Feige and the movies he's given us already, I probably wouldn't be looking forward to Captain Marvel either. But I am because I trust Kevin Feige. But if you're the type of person who bases your excitement on a movie, like a lot of people do based on the trailers, and you haven't been excited, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all, because I get it. All I want to encourage everybody to do is, when you hear these outrageous things, like these really hyperbolic statements, Brie Larson hates white men, engage some critical thinking and say, wait a minute, stop for a second. Did she actually say that? Or are you twisting something she said and phrasing it like that? Because what you're going to find is that she never said it. And if you're going to be outraged, sometimes outrage is good. Sometimes outrage is called for. But if you're going to be outraged, make sure you're being outraged on something that's actually real and not outraged on something that's being pushed on you by people with an agenda. That's all I'm saying. And if you walk away from all that and you still don't like Brie Larson, you still don't like Captain Marvel, and you're still... then that's on you. That's totally your call. I just want to encourage everybody to, facts matter. And just know what it is you're getting upset at before getting upset. Don't just take hell, don't just take my word for it. Go fact check everything I've said. Go fact check everything I've said. Don't just take what I say on face value. Fact check it. Don't just take what anybody else says. Fact check it. And then if you're still mad after you've done your own fact checking, totally cool. But I think a lot of us, once we get to the bottom of it, we realize, oh, the thing I was mad at isn't actually a thing, therefore I got no reason to be mad right now. Anyway, I think that's what Zachary Levi was getting at. That's what I'm getting at. And that's the kind of whole enchilada. Now, I already know. I told Ashley, and Ashley can attest to this. I told Ashley, hey, get ready, Ashley, because this video we're going to do today, huge number of downvotes on this video today, because I'm going to come out and speak against, the angry mob about the fact that, hey, guys, there's really nothing here to be mad about. So you watch. I know I'm going to get a huge response from that, and that's okay. I'm comfortable with that.
I mean, you broke it down so well, though. I don't even think that you are a white male film journalist. And if you're not mad at it, and no other white male film journalists at this point are upset over it, I mean, I'll have to fact check that. But I just don't understand. The bottom line is she wants more inclusion. That's what we all have to take away from her statement. and she might have put her foot in her mouth for a second, but that happens. And I think that at the end of the day, she has a good sentiment. She wants more inclusion.
Yeah. Just, hey, have the press represent a little bit the huge bodies of people and the diverse bodies of people who watch these movies.
Yes,
why don't
please.
why don't we have some press that reflect those bodies of people?
Yes.
Is that such a crazy idea? Anyway.
No.